We read in the portion of Terumah, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yikhu li Terumah. Speak to the b'nei Yisrael, and they should take from me Terumah. And who should contribute to Terumah? Meis kol ish ashidvenu libo tikvat Terumasi. From each person who will give from the generosity of his heart, you should take my Terumah. Meaning that the participation in building Mishkan was not something which was obligatory, rather it had to be out of the goodness and the generosity of the heart. It's something they wanted to do. And then it's considered Terumasi. Then it's considered my tithe. If you don't give, you don't meet this criteria of Yidvenu Libo, Nedivus Alev. Rashi says, Hu Loshen Rotzon Tov. One gives with his willingness, with the goodness of his willingness. That's why he's participating in the building. Only then does it qualify for the material of the Mishkan. Yikhu li Terumah li lishmi. We find that when one does a mitzvah, one has to do a mitzvah lishma for the sake of Hashem. That's the ultimate level. One should not do a mitzvah with self-interest. It's a Rav Shlam Nas Kabul process. It says in Pirkei Avos, he should serve the master not for the sake of reward, but rather for the sake of the master himself. When you do a mitzvah, every mitzvah should be done as such. But yet, in regard to the Mishkan, but the mitzvah has value, even if one does the mitzvah shalom lishma. One doesn't do it for the sake of the mitzvah, for the sake of God. One does the mitzvah for self-interest, with ulterior motives, it has value. But yet the Mishkan, unless you do it for the sake of God, it has no value. So the two criteria. Firstly, you have to do it for the sake of God. Secondly, it should be out of the goodness of your heart. So why a mitzvah, even if it's not done for the sake of God, it has value, and the Mishkan not? The answer is very obvious. In concept, a person does a mitzvah not for the sake of Hashem, does it with an ulterior motive. I mean, factually, the person should be punished. Could you imagine? Person seems to be a dedicated employee, works 50 years for a company, and the owner is selling it to another third party of the company. And he wants to introduce him to his most dedicated employee, that for 50 years he's never missed a day of work. Every day he invests the full 8 hours. This is the one of a kind dedicated employee. And the employee says to the new buyer, I'll tell you the truth, I couldn't care less about this company. The only reason I'm dedicated to myself, because I'm paid on time, I get my bonus when I'm supposed to get it. But in terms, whether this company continues, doesn't continue, is not my concern. My only concern is my own financial security. The owner hears this, he's appalled, he's taken aback. Hashem gives us a mitzvah to do. What is the value of the mitzvah? To serve Him. And you do the mitzvah, God, I couldn't care less what you want. But I don't want to be punished. I only want a bigger piece of the pie, so to say. That's all I'm interested in. You, I have no interest in you. This is defiance. This is the ultimate level of disrespect. But yet, if you do a mitzvah shalom lishma, even with the ulterior motive, as long as it's not lekanter, you're not using it in a sinister context, it has value. What is that value? So the Gemara tells us, in terms of the actual act itself, you deserve to be punished. But since it's a process, which ultimately, through the act which is done for self-interest, for the sake of reward, ulterior motive, it's seen as ugly. But ultimately, if you're going to arrive and you're going to achieve the Lishma, it's fine. What is the value of the Mishkan? The Mishkan has to have the spiritual capacity to contain God's presence. We're not talking about it's a vehicle to something else. This is, in essence, what it has to be. Vikoli, Lishmi. You have to do it for my sake. If you don't do it for my sake, I have no relevance here. If you have an interesting relationship, then we talk about that this is my spiritual abode, so to say. This is my spiritual resonance on this earth. But if you don't do it, it's irrelevant. That we normally say, B'toch shelo lishma bo lishma. We're not talking about, that's a vehicle. Of course, that's the medium. Through the, although it's done at a lesser level, or even a detestable level, its value is because ultimately you're going to arrive there. We're not interested in arriving. We're interested in creating. What context are we creating? Creating a context of Kedusha, that it's infused with the most advanced level of givingness, of dedication. That's Yichulig. Then it's Trumosi. Then it meets the grade. That's my Truma. That's considered taken from me. And therefore it qualifies to be the material for the Mishkan. As I mentioned, Chazal say, Rashi cites, also Chazal, there were 13 materials that were needed for the Mishkan. Why 13? Everything has to reflect God's presence. What's God's profile? God's profile is Echod. Echod. Ein lo guf, ein lo musa guf. God, chas v'sholem, is not finite. He's infinite. But one thing we can say about God, He's one. Nothing exists outside of Him. Echod, numerically, 1 is 13. Every aspect of Mishkan has to reflect His presence. What is He? He's Echod, 13 materials. 13 various different types of materials. And what has to be Li? It has to accommodate Him. I'm interested in the relationship. I negate myself to you. V'shachanti b'sochem. Mostly migdush v'shachanti b'sochem, as it says. It doesn't say b'tocho, b'tochom. That's the medium to dwell in your midst. But if you're not interested in the relationship, then I don't dwell in your midst. So therefore, every aspect of the medium has to be li, lishmi. It has to be at the most advanced level of lishma. We find that when did the Mishkan take on a permanent status? On the 8th day. On the 8th day, this is when Aaron and his Bonov and his children were installed as Kohanim. For 7 days, Moshe officiated. He erected the Mishkan. He dismantled the Mishkan. When did it take on the state of permanence? On the 8th day. When did the Shekhinah, the Divine Presence, enter into the Mishkan? On the 8th day. Why the 8th? Midrash says that the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, wore 8 vestments. The ordinary Kohen wore 4 vestments. So the Midrash, or Meir Simcha cites a Midrash that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, wore 8. Yovo Kohen Gadol, who he is attired with 8, and he's circumcised on the 8th day. You see, there's an emphasis of 8. What is 8? 8 always, as the Maral, Rabbein Bachir writes, this transcends physical existence. L'malam min hateva. The world was created in 7 days. The physical world is 7. What transcends the physical? 8. 8 is beyond. What is the value of the Mishkan? Of course, as it says at the end of Yisro, wherever my name will be mentioned, Ovo elechto v'rachticho, I will come and bless you. Blessing always manifests itself in the material. But what is the value of the material? Not the material unto itself. It's only to facilitate the spiritual. If you follow my statutes into amelim b'Torah, if a person is totally dedicated and toils in Torah, that you invest your whole ability in your spirituality, Hashem says, I'll provide. I'll provide bounty which is beyond, which is unlimited. Meaning if you fully invest in the unlimited, which is Torah, I'll provide at an unlimited level. That's in B'chukosei Teilechu. To Amelim B'Torah. What's Amelus? You invest 1 hour, fully invested. You're totally dedicated. That's Amelus. What is the value of the Mishkan? Kapara, atonement. Vosid Migdash v'shachanti b'sochem. The location of the divine presence is there. But what does the Mishkan facilitate for us? It makes us qualified to have relevance to him. If a person is a sinner, what is he? There's a distance. The Gemara says in Baruchos, there's a mechitza shel barzel. There's an iron curtain wall between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the iron curtain? What is the iron wall? That's the sin. When we had a Beis HaMikdash, you bring a korban. The korban brought kapara. That's atonement. As a result of the atonement, therefore there was no separation between us and Hashem. We were able to cleave and benefit from that relationship. But if we have interference, a person goes and he immerses himself in the mikveh. He's contaminated. You're contaminated. Sin contaminates. And you go to the mikveh. You come in contact with a rodent. So you're contaminated. You have to immerse yourself in a mikveh. It has to meet the criteria of mikveh. But let's say the mikveh meets every stringency of mikveh. But you have an adhesion on your body, which separates between the water and your body. And it's not a valid immersion. You don't achieve purity. You don't achieve patara. So if you have sin, and the sin you're not able to somehow peel it off to achieve purity, which is kapara, how can you have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It interferes with the Kedusha. We became a Goy Kodosh at Sinai. Holy nation. What is the root? What is the source of our holiness? What was the source of the Kedusha, the holiness of the mountain? Why did Har Sinai become holy? Because God descended on the mountain. Because God's relevance and association with the mountain. What's the basis for our Kedusha, our holiness? God's relationship to us. We're able, even if we're contaminated, we're still Goy Kodosh. But if we're pure, and we have atoned, we have kapara, we're able to bring the korbanos, then we advance the level. We have a greater capacity for that Kedusha, that Hashem should dwell in our midst. So that advances our Kedusha. Vikhu li truma. Lishmi. It has to be lishmi. And it has to be with a willingness, with a givingness. It's not, it's a debt. I must pay a debt. The Baloturim writes, Vikoli Truma. Now, if you take the mem out of the word Truma, the letters that are left of Torah. So he says, Truma mem Torah. You have the mem and you have the letters for Torah. Shetaranito lemem yom, hi la'ochle Truma. The Torah was given in 40 days for who? For those who were consumed the Truma. Kedamridan lo nidna Torah el la'ochle amon. To who was the Torah given? To those who consumed the man. Now, what's the man? The man is spiritual food. It was absorbed in our inner organs. It spiritualized us. It had no ill effect. No ill effect. When you eat physical food, there's an earthiness. It's interesting. When Adam ate of the Eitz Hadas, what did he affect? Eitz Hadas is Tov Ra. If the world itself was created on behalf of the human being, that means there's no aspect of existence that's not affected by our behavior. Positive and negative. Because existence only exists because of us. So when Adam ate of the Eitz Hadas, and the Eitz Hadas, the fruit, is called Tov Ra, so that means we allowed the Ra to become intermingled in ourselves. Ra became intermingled with every aspect of existence. That's what happened. So now when you eat food, as pure as it may be, you eat it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of God. But what are you ingesting? Just as a human being, why does a human being have to die? Why can't a human being live forever? Because the only way we're able to extract that evil from the human being is only through decomposition in the ground. And when the person will be resurrected, only the pure matter, at Tchias HaMesim, only that's going to be resurrected. The evil will remain in the ground. So when we eat anything, if every aspect of existence became putrefied as a result of the Ra that was contained in that fruit, because everything is connected to us. As we have this element, this component of evil intermingled in every aspect of our being. Identically, whatever we ingest has that Ra in it. What about when you eat the man? What is the man? Lo nidna Torah el l'ochle aman. Torah has no relevance to this existence. No relevance whatsoever. It's totally spiritual. Even the mitzvah we do, although it manifests itself in the physical, but in terms of the effect, what does it affect? It affects us spiritually when you do the mitzvah. There's no aspect of Ra in it. Although the wheat for the matzah, or the chamesh zaminim, it may contain that, but the effect, what are we affected by? By the performance of the mitzvah. That's the spirituality. We're affected. That affects our neshama, our soul. Our soul is enhanced as a result of the spiritual component of the mitzvah. When you eat the man, what is man? So the Gemara says, man, the Ramad explains, it's called lechem abirim. It's the bread of the powerful ones. It's the same sustenance that angels are sustained by God. What are angels sustained by God? As it says, the Gemara tells us in Brachos, at the end of time, said tzadikim yoshvim, v'troseim v'rosheim, the tzadikim will sit in their crowns over the head, v'nenin mizit hashchina, and they bask in the radiance of the divine presence. The divine presence, that radiance sustains angels. That's what sustains them. The man is that same spiritual energy, sustenance, which is put into physical form. But it has no relevance to this existence. No relevance. So the whole aspect of Ra, which every aspect of this existence is tainted with that Ra. As a result of the Chet of Rishon, the sin of Adam has no relevance to the man. Lo nidna Torah el l'ochle aman. The Torah itself was given to those who ingested the man. Because the man, what is the sustenance of man? It's pure. It doesn't have that impure component, which everything in existence has that impure component. So it gave us a greater capacity to be able to process and absorb the Torah itself, which in its essence is pure. V'zeu v'yikcha li l'shmi sh'kol mi she'osek b'Torah ki lokeach li. If you study Torah, it's as if you're taking God within yourself. The only interest Hashem has in this world, the Gemara says in Brachos, that Mishechorav Beis Hamikdash, from the time that Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the only thing God has in this world is Dal Rama Shel Halacha, the 4 cubits of Halacha. This is what the Gemara refers to as definitive Shmaitzali B'Hilsa. Definitive, not theoretical what we just speculate. There's no speculation. It's definitive. What the law is applicable in whatever situation may be. That Shmaitzali B'Hilsa. Ein la Kodesh Baruch Hu v'lo me'el Dal Rama Shel Halacha. It's a little bit of lasos. The emphasis is to be able to perform. You have to live as a Jew. Not knowing the definitive law, how do you live as a Jew? To be machmir, to be stringent, you're not living. You're not doing what God doesn't say you have to be stringent in this context. So you have to know the definitive law. Ein la Kodesh Baruch Hu, v'lo me'el Dal Rama Shel Halacha. So when you study the Torah which is the Torah that God wanted, processing that, reflecting on it, toiling in that, what are you doing to yourself? That's Yichuli Terumah. Okay, Somach Parshas Yichuli Terumah, Le Parshas Shel Torah. Torah juxtaposed we have Kisisa also Mitzvah Kabbalah Torah. The Ramban writes something interesting here. What did we hear at Sinai? We heard the Aseret Dibros, 10 Commandments. At what level did we hear the 10 Commandments? As it says, ponim el ponim, face to face. It was an awake state. She says something interesting. After we heard the Aseret Dibros at Sinai, it says Moshe ascended 40 days and 40 nights to receive the Torah. And that Moshe taught that to us. In the name of God. Moshe kibel Torah Sinai Masorah. And he gave it and he transmitted it. So Ramban writes, Kashe diber Hashem in Yisrael ponim eponim Aseret Dibros. Vetziva osam al yidei Moshe tzas mitzvos Shem kmo ovos limitzvoseh shel Torah. They are the primary mitzvos. Rashi, in last week's reading, cites Rav Sadia Gaon that the Aseret Dibros contain within them all Torah mitzvos. The subcategories of the 10 commandments, the subcategories at every level, in total, it's 613. Positive and negative commandments. So what did Hashem teach us at Sinai? Ovos l'mitzvoseh shel Torah. It's like we have on Shabbos. You have ovos, you have primary creative activities, then you have what? You have the ancillary of the, what we call toldos. Those are the derivatives. Kashin higu avosenu magerim. He says something interesting. When a person wants to convert, what you can't teach him the whole Torah in its entirety. You have to teach him the fundamentals, and then afterwards, after he converts, he fills in the gaps. So he says, Kashin higu avosenu magerim she boim lisyahid. A convert wants to become a Jew, so therefore you teach him the fundamentals, and then afterwards, you teach him the others. Yisro kibul and lasos kol mashi yitzavim el yodosh al shel Moshe. We heard the 10 Commandments. These are the fundamentals. Onoch Hashem Elokecho, lo yirol cholim acherim al ponai, whatever they are. And then afterwards we agreed, Nasav Nishma, whatever Moshe will bring us, in the name of God we accept. Korsim bris al kozeh mi'ato hinehem lo lo'om v'ulahem le'lokim. Now they became God's people, and God became their God. Kashihisni imo mitchilo ato im shemotishmu bekoli ushmartem es bris yisim li skulo v'omer atem til mamlechus kohanim v'goy kodosh. Now, this is the point. Hinehim kadoshim, he says. Atem tili mamlechus kohanim, you'll be a priestly nation. V'goy kodosh, you'll be a holy people. Hinehim kadoshim ru'uyim sh'teh behem migdosh, because you're kadoshim, because you have relatives to kedusha. You're worthy sheyu behem migdosh, that in your midst you should have a sanctuary. Shlahashro shchinos beineim, because you're kadosh. Therefore, now you have relevance to the medium, so the Shekhinah should dwell in your midst, among you. Therefore, before, right now, we have a Mishkan. That's the residence, which is sanctified for in His name. Through that medium, as it says, the communication came between the cherubs. The primary interest is what? For the Shekhinah. Where's the Shekhinah? Where's the Divine Presence located? The Oro, the Holy of Holies. I will meet you there, and I will speak to you from on the covering of the Oron. Therefore, the first of the vessels of the Mishkan is the Oron and the Kapores. Because they're also vessels similar to them. Moshe higdim beparsha vayakel es hamishkan es olav es mechseu. But in the portion when he gathered, he assembled them, he about the Mishkan, he speaks about the tent, its cover, chenos betzalel, vishu aroi lekadim emaisa. Meaning, in terms of the actual physical development, as like Betzalel says, you make all these vessels. First, you have to build a location where we're going to put them. So the Ramban says the order of that he commanded in terms of that's in value. What is the value of the Mishkan? The value of the Mishkan is the location for the Shekhinah. Once we became Goy Kodosh, we need the medium for the Shekhinah to communicate with us. That's the Aron, then the other vessels which are associated. The Shulchan and the Menorah and the Mizbeach. But in terms of how do you actualize it, you have to have a location, you have an oil, you have its covering, so on and so forth. Lefishu haroi lekadim b'maseh. The Sod HaMishkan. What is the secret of the Mishkan? What is its essence? She'akovo Rasha Shochein al Har Sinai Shochein Olav B'Nistar. The exact level of divine presence, with all its intensity, that was on the mountain. The mountain was billowing. The world was quaking. The Shekhinah in the Mishkan is no less than that intensity of Shekhinah, of divine presence. And as the Ramban shows from many verses, that the Mishkan is actually the equivalent of Sinai in every aspect. But it doesn't quake, there's no inferno, but in terms of what it is, it's no less than that. So when we had a Mishkan, it's like continuously. We're experiencing Sinai. We're associated with Sinai. That's what it is. If you take a look at the amount of wealth that went into the Mishkan, it's untold numbers of wealth in terms of the amount. And yet, you have to give it out of the generosity of your heart. She'ivenu libo. V'yikhuli, you have to do it lishma. And it's not, Hashem says, I'm not burdening you with this. It's not an obligation, it's not compulsory. It's only she'ivenu libo. All of a sudden, every Jew becomes such a tzaddik. I mean, how do you expect this? And it says they brought it within a day. Everything that was needed was immediately brought. As a result of the Nisim, the princes were nearly, they had nothing to participate. And Moshe Rabbeinu himself did not participate in the building of the Mishkan, in the development of the Mishkan. He had Hakomas HaMishkan, he erected the Mishkan. Another question, why? I mean, how did they do it? How all of a sudden was Jews are so giving, so generous? I mean, how did we accomplish something in such short notice, in moments? But they were endowed with special ability. That was a miracle. I mean, people who were involved in the most archaic, basic level of physical work, mortar and brick, and all of a sudden they become artisans, one of a kind, craftsmen, one of a kind. They were endowed with a special wisdom. But what about the givingness? The givingness to give away. Still, we're material people. We find by the Bizas Hayam, there's a question, how many pack animals did we take out of Egypt? Was it 10? Was it 90 maybe? There's every Jew. And yet at the sea, after the sea had cast the remains with the chariots of the Egyptians, the Jews didn't have enough. So what was the interest in material? They had an unsated level need for material. And all of a sudden now Hashem says, give it away. I mean, after we've displayed where HaKadosh Baruch Hu had, it says, Vayasa, he had to force them away from the sea. As much as they had. I mean, how much do you need? He forced them, and where are you going? You're in the desert. Well, you never know what we need tomorrow. But still, and yet, after displaying such a need for wealth, material, they give it away so easily. How do you give it away so easily? Zos ha-truma she'tikhu mi'itom. This is the tithe you should take for them. Zov, gold. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ein atam mivim mishalochem. When you're giving me the gold, it's not your gold. Elam bizas hayam shenasati lochem. I gave you a gift. I mean, 90 or 10 pack out animals of gold and silver is not enough. What do you think I gave you, the spoils of the sea? Even though when we took it, we believed, we had no idea that the Mishkan was actually going to present itself. But Hashem says, factually, El bizas hayam shenasati lochem. Shenemar kanfe yona nechva b'kesef. So why did God provide the bizas hayam? For what reason? Could you imagine? Kodesh Baruch Hu says to us, make for me a Mishkan, I want to dwell in your midst. And Hashem says, and these are the materials you need. Sorry, we can't afford it. Could you imagine? The level of... God just redeemed them, took them from bondage to freedom. You're supposed to be, you're a holy people. Hashem, that's a little too much to ask. Chas v'sholom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to ever put us in a position that we should even respond or react this way. So what does He do? He gives us an unlimited amount of wealth, that there are no excuses, there are no holdbacks. It's true. Initially we thought it was ours to keep forever. But when we realize the unlimited amount of wealth we have, Vikuli, Nidvas Libo. So Hashem is putting us in the best conceivable situation possible to release it for what He wants, not to burden us. The mitzvah should never be a burden. Even though the truth is, it's with everything. You're not giving. God says it's mine. I endow you with it. It's for a purpose. The wings of the dove are coated with silver. Klal Yisrael is compared to a dove. Meaning Hashem gave us the means to be able to do what He wants. So the Chavetz Chaim in his work, Avos Chesed, in last week's portion, there's a mitzvah for a Jew to lend a fellow Jew money. In Kesef Tal Ve'almi, then it says, Esa Oni Imoch, the poor man with you. Meaning, if you have a question of lending a rich man or a poor man, and we're talking about a secure borrower, secure loan, the poor man has priority over the rich man. Although you would prefer to lend the rich man as Oni Imoch. The poor man takes precedence. So the Alshich explains, does it really make sense? We're all His children. We're all God's children. Some people have wealth. The person distributes his wealth among his children. Some children He gives wealth, the others He gives nothing. They're impoverished. Why is God differentiating? Some wealth and some not wealth. He says, no. Es Oni Imoch. The portion of the poor man is by the rich man. All that you have is not all yours. You may think it's yours, but it's not all yours. You're only the administrator to administer the estate, to provide for the poor man when he needs, as long as he's responsible. That's Oni Imoch. So, you have an obligation of charity. But why? I earned it. But why did you succeed and someone else didn't succeed to your degree? Because God provided it for another. That you should provide for another. It's only in a holding pattern. You have to release it when it's time to release it. And that's life. And it goes beyond that. That's as Oni Imoch. I gave you the bizas hayam. Why did I give you the bizas hayam? The spoils of the sea. We became wealthy when we sold the water to the Egyptians. We became wealthy when we borrowed the personal effects of the Egyptians. And what about this overwhelming level of wealth? I'm not asking you to give of yours. El Bizasiyom Shinsati Lochem, that I gave you. It's interesting. We find when we borrow the vessels, it says Dabin no. Right? Please ask them to borrow. It's interesting. We find that Bikurim, it's a question, does one bring the new fruits or new grains from the Ever HaYarden, from the trans-Jordan side of the Yarden, or only the produce that grows in Eretz Yisrael proper? So there's one opinion. Rabbi Yossi says, from the land that I gave you, Shonasati Lochem, to exclude Ever HaYarden, Shelokachtem Miatzmachem, that you took yourself. Right? We read the story that 2.5 tribes wanted, they had great flocks and herds, they needed the grazing land, so you took it yourselves. You only have an obligation from the land that I've given you, Shenosati Lochem. Lo shelokhu mi'atzm, not they took yourselves. I mean, did we take it ourselves? Moshe Rabbeinu, there was a precondition. It's only because God released it. God said it, but God gave it. God wouldn't have given it, they wouldn't have had it. What do you mean, the land that I've given you, but not something you took yourself? Now, what is the concept of Bikurim? It's an expression of your gratitude, paying a debt of gratitude to Hashem, all that He gave you, all that He's done throughout history. Arami Ovid Ovi, going from Lavan wanting to destroy Yaakov and his family, Egypt. Finally, we come, we've received the land, this is the bounty. Now I'm bringing the Rashis Bikuri Adoma, the first of the fruits of the land, I'm bringing to show my gratitude to Hashem. And it has to be the first of the fruits, which most dear to the farmer. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. You know, what about the toil and the sweat and the financial investment? So, you know, but you can't deny it's a gift. God gave it to all you as a gift. Did we take, what initiative did we take? We took no initiative. Ever Yarden, it's true. Of course, God released it to us. But if we wouldn't have asked, would we have it? So it was our initiative. That's why we have it. So it's not, Hashem says, you know something? I'm not asking you to bring from there. It's only from the location that's blatantly clear to you, without any question. This is a gift. It's a gift. Okay, there's payback. I have to give back. I have to show my gratitude, my debt of gratitude. Of course, we took it. What do you mean we took it? If God wouldn't have released it, would we have it? But if we wouldn't have asked, would He be given it? So we also had a say in the matter, so to say. It's interesting. When we borrowed the vessels, the personal effects of the Egyptians, there was a concern that there may be a little bit of a hesitancy. How does a slave borrow the most precious effects from his master? You're putting yourself on the line. You're taking a chance of rejection. It was an uneasy moment. Even though God created a miracle, there was Hashem Nosach Cheinoam Beini Mitzrayim. There was a special charm that you had. But still, it wasn't simple. Until we saw that it worked, we had to put ourselves on the line. Hashem says, would you put yourself on the line from that? I'm not asking for that. That's, you earned that. But 90 pack animals, or 10 pack animals of wealth, but still you put yourself on the line. I'm not asking that. The Bizas Ayam, the spoils of the sea. We told this was the remains. It was there for anybody's picking. As much as you want. This is literally the equivalent of what? Adoma Shonosatoli. The Satoli. This is the land that you gave us. Just as there, I'm asking Bikurim, it's a tzivoy. There's a mitzvah, you must bring the new fruits, the new grains. Here, Hashem, it's not a tzivoy. It's not a commandment. It's a Asher Yidvenu Libo. Because here, it's to create the setting. Are you interested in a relationship? You're not interested in a relationship. But I'm creating a setting which it's easy for you. I'm not asking that you invested, you sacrificed for. I'm not asking for that. V'sholu Ishmi Yisrael in Egypt, call it a sacrifice. Because you were for a moment you were in a precarious position to ask at the Yam, the spoils of the sea, were you in a precarious position? Your masters were all, their remains were there. It was there to take as much as you want. Therefore, this is what I'm asking. Again, Kodesh Baruch makes it easy for us. There's a medrash. V'yikhu li Terumah, zeh shomer hakosuv, ki lekach tov nosati lechem. I've given you a phenomenal commodity. Torah siyata zovu. Words of Shlomo Melech and Mishlei. Ki lekach tov nosati lechem Torah siyata zovu. Om Reb Shimon Lakish. Reb Shimon Lakish says, Resh Lakish, Shnei Prakmatotin. Two businessmen, merchants. Omnim zem zeh. They're going to negotiate some kind of business transaction. Echad biyo metaxo, v'echad biyodo pilpul. One has silk, the other one has spices, pepper. Omro zeh lezeh bo nachle beinim. Let's make an exchange. You give me the silk, I'll give you so much spice for the silk. Notel zeh sa pilpulin. One person takes the spices, pepper, zem tax. The other one takes the silk. Mashe biyad zeh im b'zad zeh. So if they made an exchange, so one gave up something for the other. So you have to, there's a cost factor. You give up to have something else. Or mashe biyad zeh, what the person originally had no longer has it. He has something else in its place. Avla Torah ain't okay. But when it comes to Torah, this is not the case. Zeh shona seder zroyim. One studies the order of plantings. Zeh shona seder moed. The other one studies moed, the laws which pertain to Shabbos and Yom Tov, all those laws. Hishnu zelos, and each one teaches what he knows to the other. Nimtza biyad zeh shnayim, biyad zeh shnayim. So each one now is what? Is fully adept in two orders of Shas. Yesh pragmati yofu mizeh. Is there a better commodity than this? Ki lekach tov nosati lechem torasei atazovu. Havi lekach tov. So the obvious question. It's Yosef, the commentary, addresses it in a different context. A person knows physics, another person knows medicine. So the physicist says, I'm going to teach you physics, and you teach me medicine. And they go, and each one teaches the other. So now the one who initially only knew physics knows physics and medicine. The one who knows lahavdil, and the other one who knew medicine, not only does he know medicine, he knows physics. Is there a better commodity than what? Than the sciences? You're not giving up anything. By giving the other, you're gaining. Each of you are gaining what the other one knew. But Shalom el ki lekach tov nosat lechem. Torah is lekach tov, and Reish Lakish is expressing it in this context. That after everything's said and done, you fully have both, and there, when you exchange, you don't have what you originally had. Seemingly, it's not unique, specific to Torah. La'avdil, you have other things which are equivalent of this. So how do we understand this? The Rambam, the laws of Talmud Torah, writes a Jew has an obligation to study Torah. You have an obligation to study Torah continuously. Let's say you've studied it all, you have it committed to memory. You're even at a level of instant recall. That. Do you have to continue studying? To what point in our lives does a Jew have an obligation to study Torah? Rambam says, Ad Yom Moso, until you're no longer alive. That is your obligation to learn Torah. Shenemar, Ufen Yosuru Bilvovcho Koli Mechayecho. Because it may be removed from your heart, means from your mind, all the days of your life. The moment, if you're no longer engaged in Torah study, the forgetting process starts immediately. The moment you disengage, forgetting sets in. Although you may not sense it, but it sets in. So therefore, to what point do you have an obligation to continue to study? When you're no longer alive. Okay? So let's understand it. A person studies, we have 6 sections in Shas. You can't study everything simultaneously. Even if you study various things, when you're studying one, you're not studying another. But what happens? But it's an impossibility. But as long as you continuously engage in Torah study, the forgetting process doesn't set in. Because it's pen yosurim levav koinei chayecha. Because you may remove it from your mind, from your heart, all the days of your life. Therefore, as long as you're alive, you have to continuously, unceasingly be involved in the process of studying Torah. Let's say a person has to sleep. You're not engaged. The answer is no, but why am I sleeping? The Rambam says, you're able to serve God 24 hours a day, every moment of your life. How do you do it? If you eat for the sake of God, you sleep in the sake of God, you maintain your health for the sake of Hashem. The most mundane physical act is an act of Kedusha, an act of mitzvah. When you procreate, if you procreate to do the will of God, to raise children who are tzaddikim, over the Hashem, who are going to serve God, regardless of the physical act, that's a mitzvah. That's Kedusha. So as long, and that's called spiritual, that's called Torah. So as long as you're part of the process of Torah, that's called Yimei Chayecha. What if a person chooses to disengage? Let's say a person needs a moment of relaxation to get back. So the disengagement is part of Torah, because you must disengage to be back. That's Kol Yimei Chayecha. Why am I disengaging? For whatever period of time I need. To be able to be re-energized and reinvigorated to get back into the story of Torah. Okay? So let's say I take out time to teach another Jew. I know Zroim, somebody knows Moed. And I'm going to teach him Zroim. Seemingly, when I take out time to teach the other person, I'm taking out time for myself? No. I have an obligation to what? To disseminate Torah to the person who doesn't know Zroim. And the one who knows Moed, he has an obligation to what? To give of his time to teach me the other. So because every moment of that level of dissemination is part of the dissemination and study of Torah, you're not disengaged. That's not called a disengagement. But let's say a person has to, whatever he studies, medicine, physics, the moment you take out time to do something other than you have to do, there's a forgetting process. You're forgetting. Meaning, Torah, one merits a special siyata dishmaya. You have special divine assistance. Despite the lapses from one subject matter, but it's all one subject matter. It's Torah achas. It's one Torah. Whether you put on your tefillin, whether you're putting on your talis, whether you're eating matzah, whether you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos, enjoying Shabbos. Even though there are moments you can't, one goes and does his bodily functions. You're not permitted to think in Torah. Well, so why am I not thinking in Torah? Because the halacha, the Torah says, "Vayomach necha kadosh." Your camp has to be clean. Lo yervuch erev dover. It's contrary to the Torah. The Torah says you're not supposed to study now. Okay, I'm doing exactly what God says. That's not called removing myself. So therefore, ki lekach tov. Is there anything as unique as lekach, a commodity? When you exchange it, you get full. There's a full exchange, and you retain fully what you originally had, although you originally had it, because that's within the context of your obligation. As the Rambam says in the beginning of the Talmud Torah, that kol chochem v'chochem b'Yisrael yeshlo, he has a chiyuv lami ben chaveru. You have an obligation to teach your fellow son. You have an obligation to disseminate Torah. Over here, the Kli Yoker cites a Medrash Tanchuma, which is different than the Yalkut, even though they seem to be saying the same thing, but he points out they're not saying the same thing. Even though he says, although the Yalkut, which is a compilation of Midrash, he says, although it doesn't use a certain word, it's saying the same thing, but we'll discuss this. The Torah says, there was Zov, Kesef Dechoshes. What was needed for the Mishkan? Gold, silver, and copper. Then it says, Oros Elim Adomim. Hides of rams dyed red. So Bechum Masi, Zov Kineged Malchus Bovel. Gold, what does it allude to? It corresponds to the kingdom of Bovel, to the exile of Bovel. Shenemar, it says in Daniel, Daniel had a dream. Ant Reshad the Dahavo. You are, Nebuchadnezzar is the golden head. Kesef Kineged Modai. Kesef, silver, corresponds to the meat. Shenemar, Boaseres, Alof Mekikor Kesef. Haman, how did he seal the fate of the Jews? He gave 10,000 talents of silver to seal the fate of the Jews, to initiate the decree to annihilate every man, woman, and child. Nechoshes, Kineged Malchus Yovon, that corresponds to the Greek exile. Shehi Pschusa Mikulam, the least, time was the least of all of them. Oros Elam Adomim, Kineged Malchus Edom. The red hides, ram hides, that corresponds to the Edom, the Edomite exile. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, quoting the Mishnah, Afal Pisha Tem Roim Dalden Mochios. Although you see the four kingdoms, Nizgos, they're becoming ingratiated, insolent, arrogant. Ubos Alechem, they're coming upon you. Chayechem Sha'ani Matzmiach Lechem Yeshua. Minashiv, ultimately to be a salvation within the bondage. Maksiv Basrei V'Shemen Lamor. Ultimately, there's going to be the oil for illumination. Zemelech Mashiach. Shenemar, Shamatzmiach, Keren LeDavid, Arachli Ner LeMashichoi, Uchsiv, Kumi Ori, Kiva Orech. He explains, what does this mean? He says, many ask questions on the Midrash. What did the Dal Malchios have to do with the Mishkan? We're talking about a location. Osli Migdash Ushachanti Besocham. This is the holiest location in the world. You have a representation of the four exiles, civilizations which are the antithesis and opposed to God's existence. They should have a representation in the Mishkan. So he explains it this way. The Medrash explains it very simply. It's not that there's a representation of the four exiles in the Mishkan. The four exiles. Ki arosha hogun lekach sheyudiu Hashem Yisborach ma sheyachrov. Elevadish kavnoso il to elus Yisrael k'dei sheyedu sheish biyodem zchuyos asher b'kocham yuchlu lamod keneged kol dal malchios elu shlo yuchlu lechalus Yisrael. We have gold in the Mishkan. What is the representation of the Babylonians? Nebuchadnezzar, as the Gemara says, he was one of the people who reigned the world supreme. Gold. We gave gold in the Mishkan. The schus of the gold Mishkan will counter whatever he represents. The Medes, how were they viewed and seen in the dream of Daniel? Silver. We gave silver to the Mishkan. The schus of the silver in the Mishkan will counter whatever that is. What about the copper? Yavon, they want to destroy us. They want us to assimilate. The schus of giving copper to the Mishkan, that will counter that force. What about Edom, which is endless, unlimited exile? There's never been an exile like Edom. Or Elam Adomim. We provided the red hides of the ram hides. That will counter them. Ubinyan Av L'Kulam, he quotes a Gemara which is similar to that. It says, Haman gave 10,000 talents of silver. Why do we have a mitzvah of machzah shekel? Hashem says that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the refuah kodem l'mako. The antidote always precedes the ailment. Because since Hashem foresaw that ultimately the fate of the Jew will be sealed with the 10,000 talents of silver, and that's why Achshverosh removed the ring to allow him to bring this decree into reality, Amrei Shloch Shgolav Yidul Fonim Fnei Mishomer Hoy Olam Sheoser Homan Lishkol Shkolim Al Yisrael. He's going to give Shkolim, the coins, the Fir Hiktim Shikleim L'Shiklei Homon. We preempted it, that the schus of our Shkolim will incapacitate, deactivate, whatever that is. So the same thing. But he says that's only very good according to the language, the terminology in the mention of the Chukah says kineged. It corresponds. If you look in the Yalkut doesn't say kineged, the word kineged. It says the gold is a representation, is Bovil. The silver is a representation of Modai. The copper is a representation. So then, and that's a question. See, let's say it means the same. So what I said was this. We find, the Gemara tells us in Yuma, that at the beginning of Bayesheni, the second temple, after they built the Beis HaMikdash, the Achik Knesset Gedolah, they came to an understanding. We have to deal with all the issues, the challenges of Klal Yisrael. Now, during the Bayis Rishon, or the majority of the time when we were in Eretz Yisrael, what ravaged and what undermined the spirituality of the Jewish people? Idolatry. Most Jews were idolaters. We continue speaking about the prophets of the Baal, all these different, all idolatry. And the Gemara tells us that what? That the desire for idolatry was so overwhelming and all-consuming, it was even a greater drive than the sexual drive. That's how it was. So they prayed to Hashem, and they fasted that they wanted to destroy the evil inclination for idolatry. And Hashem says it's okay. And they prayed and they fasted. All of a sudden they see a fiery lion coming out of the Kodesh Kadoshim, out of the Holy of Holies. Which this fiery lion was a representation of the evil inclination for idolatry. It says they chased it, they grabbed hold of it, and they put it into a lead cylinder, sealed it, and they destroyed it. And that was the end of that overwhelming drive and desire for it. You'd say it came out of another location. Where did the lion walk out of? Of the Holy of Holies. This is the location of the Shekhinah. That's where it should come out of. Let it come out from another location. The location where the divine presence dwells, that's where it is. But it says explicitly, that's where it came out of. So what do we see from here? In the world, if let's say the positive would be more heavily weighted than the negative. The positive forces are more heavily weighted than the nether forces. Then the balance is off. When we start, everything has to be equal. The negative versus the positive. We could empower the positive by doing the positive. That's our Bechira. So we create an atmosphere, an energy, where the positive overweighs the negative. Chas v'sholom, you succumb to your inclination, you make the wrong choice, then you're empowering the negative. So then it becomes weighted on the negative side. But to create this balance, what do you need? The same location where you have a representation of positive, you have to have that same location, that same source, a representation of the negative. Therefore, Zov, Kesef, Nechoshes, Oris El Modomim, what does that represent? Of course, this is the location for the Echot. This is part of the Echot. To declare that we believe in the unity of Hashem, which the world, the pagans, they rejected, they deny it. It's irrelevant. But in that same location, they have to have a representation. Zov, Ze Bovel, Kesef, Ze Modai, the Choshev, Ze Yovon, Eros Olam Edomim. This is what? This is Edom. You have to have a representation. That's what you have to have. And therefore, as we see, from where did the line come out of, which is the Yitzhar Shel Avodah Zorah, came out from the Kodesh Kadoshim. But you have to differentiate. I always say that in history, we always had counterbalances. But there, the counterbalance was based on the person's choice, and of course, it had an effect. Now, who was the counterbalance to Avram? Nimrod. The day Nimrod was killed, that was the day Avram died. Who was the counterbalance to Yishmael? Yitzchak. Who was the counterbalance to Esav? Yaakov. The day Yaakov was interred, Esav was killed, and his head rolled into the Marsa Machpelah. Who is the counterbalance to Bilam? Moshe Rabbeinu. Who is the counterbalance to the world? Klal Yisrael. So again, we're the counterbalance to Edom. The whole world is busy with us. Could you imagine? We have 13 million Jews in existence. And of them, how many are affiliated? How many are truly, fully practicing Jews? World, 8 billion people, fully invested and occupied with a little thin strip of land, and the Jews that are sprinkled throughout the world. Rationally, logically. Does it make sense? Makes no sense. But yet they're all involved, fully focused on it. We have the counterbalance. You know, somebody once asked, you have a pound of feathers and a pound of iron, which is heavier? Same thing. You have 50,000 miles of iron, and you have 1 mile of what? Of platinum, which is greater value. Equivalent of 50,000 miles of iron. That's it. Lahavdil Elav Avdol is the Jew. We're minuscule. We're less than a speck. But what are we? We are the counterbalance for the world. And therefore, the world, what are they consumed with? Totally destroying us. But we're the counterbalance. And the more we infuse the positive with what we're supposed to, ultimately we will overweigh whatever they are.